We have a fascinating mission today, taking a linguistic snapshot, really, of a high-stakes political moment. Our source material, it's an excerpt from a campaign rally down in Norfolk, Virginia, supporting Abigail Spanberger's run for governor. Okay, let's unpack this one. Our purpose, as always, isn't about the politics itself, not the platform's viability, no. We're doing a forensic deep dive into the communication strategy. What were the absolute core messages that, foundational pillars the campaign team built? And how did they distill these high-level political ideas into memorable phrases designed for, well, rapid consumption? Think of it as a blueprint for you, showing how sophistication gets packaged simply.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is just the sheer efficiency. I mean, in these brief rally appearances, every single word has to do some heavy lifting. It really does. The communication team, they've got to instantly establish the candidate's identity, right? And her positioning, relative to opponents, plus the target promises. It's a masterclass in synthesis, really, and we can pull all those essential bits out right away.
Okay, so let's jump right into that core identity, the one the campaign wants voters to really absorb. It leads, naturally, by saying she's a true leader. That's pretty standard. But the real strategic piece, the powerful centerpiece, is the claim she has always put people over politics.
Mm-hmm. That phrase, people over politics, that's the anchor. And its strategic value is just, you really can't overstate it. It's designed for immediate, broad appeal. It just clicks by placing people and politics in direct opposition like that. The candidate signals she operates outside or maybe, above the usual partisan fray. The promise becomes pragmatic, nonpartisan governance, and that appeals to that huge group of voters just exhausted by gridlock.
Yeah, I see the immediate rhetorical appeal there. I mean, who doesn't want results instead of just bickering? But okay, here's a question. In our modern two-party system, is that people over politics positioning actually, well, feasible? As governor, she still has to sign bills, right? Make decisions that fundamentally help one group or viewpoint over another, often dictated by her own party stance, majority or minority. So how does the campaign message handle that inevitable trade-off, having to eventually take a side?
That's the critical tension, isn't it? And the messaging has to manage it carefully. Look, they don't promise nonpartisanship. That's not quite it. They promise nonpartisan prioritization. It's a subtle but important difference. The language is very deliberately chosen. It's about focusing on the practical stuff, the people issues that ideally transcend party labels. Think roads, jobs, school budgets, things like that. Now, maintaining credibility, that requires some tactical maneuvering. They've got to frame every vote, every decision back through that lens.
Right.
How does this help the average Virginian, not just, towing the national party line? It means they have to show independence early and often.
Got it. So it sets the frame for the entire fight she's promising to take on. Right
Sure.
after that identity statement comes the direct promise, tied specifically to the governor's office. The rally quote states clearly that as governor, she'll fight for your rights, your family, and your future.
Mm-hmm. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it's a beautifully constructed triad of voter concerns: rights, family, and future. Rights, that's about protection, immediate guarantees, often legal, constitutional, maybe personal autonomy stuff. Family, that's intensely emotive, right? Universally relatable. It grounds the whole platform in personal well-being. And future, well, that's inherently aspirational. It covers the long-term economic opportunity, education, quality of life.
Okay, let's dig into the subtext of that triad a bit, specifically in the Virginia context. When they say they'll fight for your family, what specific sort of contemporary anxieties are they trying to tap into right now?
Well, in Virginia, fighting for family touches on ground that's been pretty politically charged lately. Things like the cost of childcare, the quality and curriculum in public schools, local control over education, but it also hits those kitchen table issues like, high housing costs. By using family, they make it personal. Abstract policy suddenly feels really urgent. And similarly, when they talk about future, they're pointing towards, say, high-growth sectors, infrastructure funding, and making sure economic opportunities, maybe concentrated in Northern Virginia or the Tidewater area, are accessible statewide. It's an explicit promise, really, to invest in tomorrow's economic base.
That makes sense. That transition from the broad identity, people over politics, to those specific areas of combat. Rights, family, future. They establish the why before they get to the what. So if that identity is the foundation, let's look at the structure they're building on it. The three foundational virtues they say she stands up for: freedom, opportunity, and unity in Virginia.
All right, this is section 2, the 3 pillars. And their selection is really significant. It balances, ideological appeal with economic hopes and relational aspirations. These three words become the kind of governing philosophy. They support that fundamental promise of putting people first.
Okay, let's break down freedom first. It's such a cherished word, but also politically loaded, isn't it?
Exactly. And freedom is deliberately left broad. That's the point. Because it appeals to different groups for fundamentally different reasons. For some voters, maybe more rural voters, it speaks to economic freedom, low taxes, less regulation, property rights. You know that vibe. For others, maybe more in urban and suburban spots, it's about personal autonomy, bodily rights, freedom from state interference in social issues. By keeping that definition open, the campaign ensures the message hits home for the largest number of people possible. Maximally relevant.
And then opportunity, that's the economic hook, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. It's the explicit link to economic success. It signals policies aimed at removing barriers to upward mobility. Things like access to vocational training, maybe affordable higher education, business development incentives. It's the promise that the state will actively provide the platform for individuals to succeed, and that directly addresses the anxiety voters feel about stagnant wages and rising costs.
Okay, now let's talk about the final pillar, unity. This one seems, well, maybe the most difficult to achieve, and potentially the most rhetorically vague. I mean, if the candidate promises to fight for specific rights and economic policies, that inherently means she'll oppose those who disagree, right? So how can you promise unity while also engaging in the necessary, sometimes divisive policy battles that governing requires? Is unity just the absence of policy talk?
That's a sharp critique, and it's fair. But no, unity isn't the absence of policy. It's a promise about the process and the outcome of policy. That's the key. Look, in today's deeply polarized landscape, voters are just plain exhausted by tribalism. The campaign is leveraging that fatigue. It really is. Promising unity is like a pledge to govern fairly for the entire state, even those who didn't vote for her. It's about bringing all stakeholders to the table, setting an expectation, the expectation that political differences will be managed respectfully, not just, exploited for political gain. It's more of an emotional promise.
Yeah.
We are one Commonwealth. The constant fighting needs to stop.
Ah, okay. So it functions almost like a peace treaty offered to the electorate, reinforcing that initial identity of people over politics. It's designed to give voters permission, maybe, to support her without feeling like they're signing up for endless political warfare.
Precisely. These three themes, freedom, opportunity, unity, they create the ideological frame. They are strategically general, yes. And while that risks vagueness, it also allows the campaign to pivot flexibly between specific policies while still staying true to that core mission statement.
Right. Now let's move from those more abstract goals and promises to the person herself. The focus shifts a bit to the leadership traits emphasized at the rally. The speaker stated that Virginia deserves a leader who listens to a governor who leads with integrity, compassion, and courage.
Yeah, and that list of qualities is highly intentional, very carefully chosen. It blends those classic sort of immutable character traits with more modern relational skills. Integrity and courage, those are the foundational moral requirements for any leader, right? They promise moral fortitude under pressure.
But the leading trait mentioned there is listening. That seems to be the one the campaign is really driving home. Why is listening such a crucial relational skill to advertise right now?
It's the ultimate contrast trait, isn't it? So many voters feel this acute disconnect. They believe politicians only listen to, well, their donors or lobbyists or national party bosses. So emphasizing listening is a really powerful, humanizing appeal. It promises accessibility, responsiveness. It implies a governor who isn't just insulated up in Richmond, but is actively out there seeking input from local communities, from school boards, from small businesses. It makes her the antithesis, really, of the perceived disconnected career politician.
So it's not just presented as a nice trait to have, it's a strategic promise of responsiveness. And that cycles directly back to the people over politics theme again. The identity is built on integrity and courage, sure, but the operational mechanism for delivering results is listening and compassion.
Absolutely. The qualities provide the behavioral proof points for those abstract pillars we talked about. The idea is if you govern with compassion and courage, then you can deliver opportunity and freedom and still maybe achieve some unity.
Got it. And finally, the purpose of any rally mobilization, you have to get people to act. The discussion shifts from defining the candidate to activating the base. The rally ended with that crucial call to action, emphasizing voter participation. The quote was short, punchy. Let's make sure every voice is heard. Every vote counts. That little blue heart emoji included.
Yeah, this is pure get out the vote, GOTV messaging, classic function. The communication has to move the audience from just passive consumption to active engagement. The rally isn't really successful if people just nod along and agree. They have to do something. Reinforcing that every voice counts ties back neatly to the commitment to democratic participation and unity mentioned earlier. It all links up. And that blue heart emoji, it seems small, but it's a potent nonverbal cue. It reinforces campaign branding, emotional allegiance, in a way that goes beyond just the formal words. It helps transform the audience from passive listeners into active participants in achieving that future they were just promised.
Wow, okay, so this deep dive has pretty effectively mapped out the campaign's entire elevator pitch, hasn't it? You got identity, ideology, character, and the call to action, all there. So let's quickly summarize the blueprint we extracted from that Norfolk rally excerpt. The core identity, defined by championing people over politics, prioritizing citizens' practical needs. The core promises center on fighting for protection, emotion, aspiration, specifically rights, family, and future. And this whole platform is underpinned by three defining pillars: freedom, opportunity, and unity. All driven by a leader committed to integrity, compassion, and courage, with that special emphasis on being a governor who actively listens.
Exactly. And this deep dive really shows how sophisticated political communication works, how it breaks down complex platforms into these digestible, relatable pillars for you, the listener. By focusing on those three areas of fighting and those three pillars, the campaign provides clear, emotionally resonant hooks for basically every type of voter. It ensures the message lands cleanly across pretty diverse demographics.
It truly is compelling how much subtext gets packed into such concise language. Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider. Given that this message leans so heavily on broad aspirational concepts like freedom and opportunity, how might you, as a voter, armed only with these core themes, begin to deduce the specific policy actions this candidate is likely to take once in office? What specific, detailed policies must logically follow from that promise to fight for your future in a state like Virginia? And, maybe more pointedly, where will the necessary budget battles actually begin?
Always a deeper layer to unpack beneath the surface, isn't there? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into campaign messaging.
We'll catch you next time.